Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Pitch Talk.
We are fans of football dropping vlogs, videos and podcasts on the beautiful game.
Check out our videos on YouTube and Instagram's IGTV,
including special feature segments,
5 minutes with the G,
the straight shooting view,
coaching with JBK. We produce, record and edit video content
and audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Verbal, Podomatic,
Anchor,
Spotify
and other podcast platforms.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution on Twitter, Instagram,
Facebook
and www.pitch-talk.com.
The pitch is where we eat.
The pitch is where we sleep.
And the pitch is where we talk.
I can see you now. I can see you now and then. I can see you now.
Welcome to
Coaching with JBK. Welcome, and it's yours truly, JBK, and this is a special edition of Coaching with JBK, which looks at the Women's FA Cup prize fund set to increase. So, to put this into perspective, and the reason why this is as big as it is on the 28th of January, and at the time of recording this, it was mentioned, and it is mentioned, that the prize fund for the Women's FA Cup is about to increase. Now, to give it into perspective, the winners of the FA Cup itself will, and the Women's FA Cup I should say, stand to win a guaranteed 25 grand. When you look at the men's side, you stand to win 1.8 million for winning the FA Cup. Now, the women's fifth round, which was this weekend, was, for the men's side, was 180 grand, 180,000 pounds. For the women's side, which was just this week alone, the fifth round proper was 3,000 pounds. For the losing team, 750 pounds. Now, there were teams that basically over that time hadn't accrued enough money to be even allowed to play in that trophy for the women's side. So when you're looking at it, can we not introduce equal pay going forward? If you're looking at those from the side of, oh well, women's football isn't as important, or women's football isn't as big as the men's game, well, that's because it was banned for pretty much 50 years, and then from 71 all the way up until probably 2003, we didn't really hear much about the women's game. And even if you heard from 2003, it was a select few that really did. So now you go to 2015, where the England women's team managed to come third, beating Germany in the World Cup in 2015 in Canada. All of a sudden, we now need to put some money into the women's game. But was it enough? No. If you look at the WSL, that still has 12 teams in it. Not so long ago, it was only 10. Not so long ago, it was the WSL 1, WSL 2. Not so long ago, it was a spring and a summer series, or a spring and winter series, or the summer and winter. It just had so many different connotations that when you're looking at the sides that really should be putting money into their teams, they weren't. Even Manchester United were forced to, and I do use the term literally, forced to put a side together, put a club together in the women's section. They had disbanded their women's section, and all of a sudden there was a little bit of noise that they didn't have a team. By the time the noise had come around, they already had a team, and that was coming from Megan Rapinoe. But that's besides the point. What I'm saying is, with a team like Manchester United, that team should have been above and beyond with Man City, Chelsea and Arsenal from the first game in the 2011 WSL series. It wasn't. They weren't there. They had to work their way up again. You look at teams like Newcastle United. You look at teams like so many different teams. That Liverpool, not in the WSL, but they're working their way back up towards it. Let's look at the 20 teams that are in the Premier League, and then work out how many of those teams have actually got a women's side that are as successful as Arsenal or Chelsea or Man City, and then how many teams they actually play within that season. Do they play 20 games? No. Or 20 teams? No. Sorry, 19 teams. Let me get that right. Are there 20 teams in the WSL? No. Are there 38 games within a season for the WSL? No. Can funding really help the WSL to move forward? Yes. And that also goes with the FA Cup. You can't necessarily have a team that's going to be out of pocket before they even played a round of game. We had not so long ago Clapton, who had an amazing run in the league, in the cup, and eventually had to go to Plymouth. But their prize fund didn't accrue to what they needed to get to Plymouth in the first place. And that was the issue. They had to prize fund just to even get there. Now you're looking at teams like Ipswich and Southampton who have a chance of getting through. And this is the issue. You've got teams like that who possibly should be pushing the rhetoric of having two teams who pay the same wage within their club standings between the men's and the women's on equal level. And on top of that, then you will start to see that there is an FA Cup prize fund and a WSL prize fund that we really need to look for. We really need to see. So, in short, I'm going to say, has this been coming? Yes. Is it, I think, 10 years out of 10 years too late? Half and half. Probably agree to disagree on that situation. I'd probably say, yes, it should have been done sooner. But it's a stepping stone to say that the women's game is going to have the same equal opportunities as men. And that's the reality of this. So the fact that we're increasing the prize money in the FA Cup, one of the oldest cups in history, now we're going somewhere with the women's game. We just need to do it with everything else and then hope that we get the same branding, not just the same branding, but the same level of consistency within the men's and the women's game, where you get VAR at some point, where you get people really using the rules properly. I still remember 2019 where the goalkeeping rule for penalties, where you couldn't move your foot off the line for a goalkeeper, that was only introduced in the third round of games in the group stages, not the first, in the third round of games in the group stages, and it cost the team. It cost the team a place in the next round. And now to throw over to my guest and fellow co-host, SSLJA.
Hey, what is up, JBK? Appreciate you having me on Coaching with JBK, and especially about these subjects as well. You know what, yeah? I mean, these two are of critical importance. And I'm going to take the FA Cup one first. The Women's FA Cup getting more prize money, I think is tremendous. And the fact is, I mean, looking at the numbers as well, where fourth round FA Cup tie winners get £90,000 in the men's game and £2,000 in the women's game, and then the prize money for this season's FA Cup final being 1.8 million compared to 900,000 for the runners up, but in the women's game it's 25,000 and 15,000 disrespectively. It's like, you can see that huge disparity that really shouldn't be there, and we know why it's there. It's because you look at the good old boys running the game. Good old boys, good old men, whatever you want to call them. It's them kind of people running and ruining the game. And it's one of them where it's like, men controlling a women's game is kind of bad enough already, but when they're not even strip mining it, they're just giving them crumbs. It's like, yeah, here's a crumb, be happy that you've got that. And that balance definitely needs to be redressed. Now, some people would say that, oh, the standard of women's football is not good enough. Oh, they're not big draws and da da da. Yeah, but I kind of hate when people say that, because imagine if your efforts were deliberately held back and literally stopped for 50 years. Imagine you were banned from something for 50 years. You couldn't do it. So of course and by men as well if you're a woman. So of course your standard in the game is not going to be as high as the other one who's had a 50-year head start. It's like comparing, what's Tony Khan's wrestling company, AEW. It's like comparing them to WWE. It's like, it's not a fair comparison. And it's actually almost the same one, where it's like, dude, there is no comparison between the two, because one of those companies has been around in its current incarnation as WWE/F for 50 plus years. They even did a DVD of it a few years back. So it's like, they've got a massive head start. So you can't compare the two. Oh yeah, one may win the ratings or whatever, but if you're comparing literally company to company, side by side, I said there literally is no comparison. And at the end of the day, the only difference, I mean, you could actually say, yeah, WWE have held everybody else back. You actually could say that, plundering the territories and all that sort of stuff. So you could in theory say that they held everybody back. But, and also those contracts where it's like, yeah, you can work for everybody but the other two or the other one. And it's like, well, you can't work nowhere then. But with coming back to women's versus men's football, it's one of them where it's like, of course, that people are going to argue that the standard is low, but they won't know, most people don't know that context, that the women's game was literally, women's football was banned for 50 years. So as I said, they're clawing that back and getting little pieces of equality here and there. And it's one of them ones, it definitely needs to be more, and it needs to be a concerted effort as well. It can't just be one little thing here and one little thing there. It's like there have to be more strides made. Because of course you've got divisions within the women's game, as we've discussed before on a special feature, about the lack of BAME representation at management level and above. There's still that to be sorted out as well. But the fact of the matter is, first and foremost, you got to sort out the inequalities between the men's and the women's game, and then you attack everything else, because you can only really put your full focus on one thing at a time, no matter who you are. So I'm glad that this FA Cup financial imbalance is getting addressed, but there's so much more that needs to be done, and who's to say how quickly it's going to happen? Because there's still going to be a major disparity, and the fact that MPs are getting involved and all that, it's like, okay, cool, fine. And it's like calling for protests, cool. And it's one of them, the FA saying they've had a clear plan for women's football. It's one of them ones where it's like, well, it doesn't seem that way. Some things do seem like token gestures, and it is one of them ones where it's like, okay, cool. Like this year they invested 50 million quid into an initial game plan for growth strategy, which doubled female participation. Okay, cool. But as you said, Jamie, before, and especially recently, there have been a good few women's clubs going out of business. So how is that being addressed? Where is that 50 million going? And even so, 50 million is a tiny amount, especially when you compare it and you put into context the Premier League deal that is 5.45 billion, and that's just been renewed for another couple of years at the same price. So it's like, it's not as if there's not the money to invest. So without being cynical, I kind of have to always come back to that.
Now we're talking about the FA Cup being prize funded. I'm absolutely delighted with that. Let's really push the boat out and hope that we get more fans into stadiums, not just at Wembley, but also wherever an FA Cup game is going to be, from the preliminary rounds all the way through. And that way we can see that we are now noticing that not only can the men play, but the women can play too, because the funding and the marketing has been really pushed to make sure that that's going to happen. Yours truly, JBK, is going to sign off with this one. I hope you enjoy this one. Have a think. Should it have been increased sooner, or is it the right time for the right amount as well? At the moment, we don't know how much it's going to be because the FA have not released it, but hopefully we will know. Hopefully we'll know before next season comes. Yours truly is about to go. I'm out. Peace. Join the Pitch Talk revolution.
Check out the official Pitch Talk website.
www.pitch-talk.com. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Pitch Talk.
We are fans of football dropping vlogs, videos and podcasts on the beautiful game.
Check out our videos on YouTube and Instagram's IGTV,
including special feature segments,
5 minutes with the G,
the straight shooting view,
coaching with JBK. We produce, record and edit video content
and audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Verbal, Podomatic,
Anchor,
Spotify
and other podcast platforms.
Join the Pitch Talk revolution on Twitter, Instagram,
Facebook
and www.pitch-talk.com.
The pitch is where we eat.
The pitch is where we sleep.
And the pitch is where we talk.
I can see you now.